What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another season, another edition of the NFL No Fun League podcast. Been what 2-3 years since we recorded an episode, but we're back. Less than that, 2 years since we recorded an episode, but we're back. Gonna talk a little bit of contender rankings, some super flex talk. No, it's been a hot button, a contentious issue. But yeah, we're excited to come back, talk to you guys. Excited for another season. Ryan, how you feeling?
I'm feeling great. I have not been more excited for a season since year one. Has nothing to do with having been the donkey of the league for 3 years, but I'm here with last year's champion. I have a championship myself. We have equally magnificent chains on.
I have the most magnificent chain on, but
That might be
I got to get
true.
my pendant. I haven't got my real trophy yet,
Any
but
thoughts on that?
they're hard to find. That's my thought on it. Is it's hard to find like customized specific things for big ass Cuban chains, but we'll find it. I'm confident I will let you all know whenever I find it, and it doesn't really matter because I'll have 2 years to look. This
Yeah.
chain's not going anywhere anytime soon. But we
Maybe
can
you should
talk about that when we get to our contender rankings.
get matching ones for year 1 and 2 if it comes to that.
I want to get some sort of like theme going if I when I win next year.
Love the confidence. But yeah, I'm excited for the league. I'm excited to talk about the potential changes to the league. It's
Yep.
just it's going to be a really interesting year, and I'm very excited for it.
We'll definitely get into it later, but definitely been a lot of excitement this off season, some interest. I honestly am enjoying it. Everybody's kind of getting involved, getting talking. We'll see what happens. No one knows, but I like to see everybody excited and passionate and just fighting for the league. So yeah, I think with that we can get into our contender rankings.
Do it.
All right. Well, it's safe to say Ryan and I had a tough time making these. We're gonna break it down more into tiers. I don't know if we have the same tiers or similar, but we were talking before this, trying to make a 1 through 10 ranking of our consensus, and it was not easy. I even just purely looking at contenders for just like status to win this season. I see a lot of this league in a very similar range. So I think it's gonna be really interesting, and I think these could look dead wrong later in the year. I think they could be predictive.
Yeah.
Ryan, you want to kick us off with your first tier or first thoughts?
So I believe that Dan and I agreed that the two expansion teams are still for this year um, sort of removed from all this. They're in a really difficult spot where they're definitely starting to show some promise, but we're not going to call them a contender, frisky, or a fraud because they're doing it very well. Honestly, way better than I would have done. I can admit that. Um, but yeah, I don't think they're going to be potential contenders or making any noise this year in the wins department. Just not deep enough yet. But so yeah, I think you also did contender, frisky, and fraud.
Yep, I had contender, frisky, fraud, and then I had up and coming, and that's exactly where I had Nico and Pat was my two up and comers. Wouldn't thought you'd look at those teams and think top heavy, talking about the two expansion teams, but like you look at Nico's roster and there is legit dynasty talent at a lot of spots, but the starting lineup thins out real quick. You got Zay Jones, Devon A. Chain in there. The bench gets iffy. I think his 3 first-round picks next year will help that, as well as another
You
year
have
for
to
all of his young
imagine.
stars. Um,
I can say
I
when I
think this is
had
the year
four
they
first
start
round
making
picks.
waves.
Sorry.
Sorry, I was just gonna say I think this is the year the contenders start making waves. Though they're in their own tier at the bottom. If I was a betting man, I would say these two teams will not be the bottom two this year for the first
I
time in a
was gonna
while.
say I wouldn't even put them. If we're talking for this year, maybe just contending this year, but even still, I could see them doing better than one or two of my frauds. Um, uh, what was I gonna say? Oh, I was gonna say Nico's three first next year will definitely make some noise. I can say, having had four firsts in 1 year, I didn't miss on one of them. Trey Sermon, Terrace Marshall, still loading, still very, very promising studs.
Good
But
luck,
yeah,
Nico.
I'll
Go
get
find your Terrace Marshall.
he's never leaving the roster until he's out of the league. I'll tell you that. But I'll start with my contenders. I think it would be crazy to say that last year's winner, who is pretty much keeping it all the same and running it back, is any less of a contender this year. And I'm gonna say my stuff in order, by the way, because I do sort of have a 1 through 10. So Dan is my first contender, and I think the number two is actually pretty easy for me as well, and that's Brennan. I think there's definitely differences between the two. I think Brennan's starters almost rival Dan's, but in terms of long term value, there's a huge difference, I would say. But both contenders this year, nonetheless. And then I actually have a third contender, and that's Zach Fedor. I think his starting roster is quite good, and I think his bench is all right. So I think that could be said for all three of those contenders. Very top heavy teams, but the top is so heavy that it's pushing enough weight for me.
Yeah, in the case of both me and Feeds, teams that have been making moves, sacrificing depth, sacrificing longevity to really get the top end starting lineup. And I think that's how you go. I think that's how you got to win a ring. It's probably evident. My Eckler trade, my Chase trade. Yeah, I don't think there's too much needs to be said about the funky bunch. Nothing that hasn't been said already. We're beautiful. It's one of the prettiest fantasy football teams I've ever seen. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. There are questions coming. Kittle, I'm nervous. The tight end spot's not what it was. The running backs are getting older, but God, it's still gorgeous. And then same as you, I had Brennan as my number two team in my contender window. And that is where I ended it. It's worth noting my teams that are going to be in the following category, Frisky, are all teams that I think could win a ring this year, and I would not be surprised in the slightest. But they're just teams that I don't see on the win now level that Brennan and I are. I think there's a big gap here, and then afterwards, very small gaps between everybody.
I think Zach's up there, especially with Brennan. I feel like, I mean,
I got to bring up the
yeah,
teams, but
Brennan has the better running backs, but I don't know. I like
Zach's
Zach's
receiving room
receiving.
is gorgeous, very nice.
As is Brennan's, and that's why I have him over. But I think Zach deserves a shout. So
I mean,
I
yeah,
take
put
uh,
sorry, but put Kelsey on any team with like good star talent at other positions with Jacobs, with Devontae Adams, Jalen Waddle. Put Kelsey on any team like that, and they probably belong in the contender tier.
yeah, man. Um, I guess I'll go with my Frisky.
I'm gonna say that leads us right into the Friskies.
At the top, I have the friskiest bunch you'll ever see. And I think that we can all agree that's myself. I was telling Dan before we went live, I am so excited for this team. I, I've gone on record before in other leagues. I don't think this one as a slut for consistency, I call it. And I am very excited about how safe so much of my team is on the starting roster, on the bench. And then we have the firepower of Justin Fields. We have Jameer Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown. And then we have the rest of the lineup's just a safe floor, I think, almost every week. And if every guy's giving you 10 plus points, 10 to 15 points, and then you have three guys that are just going off two out of every 3 weeks or more, I think that's a recipe to win a lot of games. So I'm excited. Behind myself, I have Tom. I've haven't spoken having spoken to Tom himself. I can say that I actually am higher on Tom than Tom is. But I think for this year, I love Tom's receivers, and I love his depth at running back as well. Maybe Taylor isn't what he was 2 years ago, but I think Sanders is going to get fed. I think Madison is being overlooked a lot this offseason. Um, I'm honestly shocked at his ADP in redraft leagues, just inheriting that Dalvin Cook role that I think he'll fill just fine. And Akers, I hear a lot of noise about too. I'm not the hugest Akers guy, but if that's your 4, that is pretty good, I would say. And then my last Frisk Meister is Luke Wittenborn. I was also telling Dan before we went live, I think Luke is building something that really could turn some heads, even as by the end of this season. A lot of young guys. I just don't think all of them make the leap this year. So I'm not going to say he's a contender right now, but who knows? I think he'll upset some contenders. I think he could be in the playoffs himself. Who knows?
Thomas Griffin is a fraud. Hit my hand there, jump down to my frauds for a moment here. I was with you with Wit. I was with you on Zach. Both were actually, I guess I had Zach in my Frisky. I was with you on Wit and you as two teams that I also had in Frisky. I don't know. Tom's team, it fell off fast. It's scary now. I guess fell off fast is hard to say because then he added Chris Olave and Devontae Smith. It's
Yeah.
a team that I don't think is in a terrible spot long term. But this season, the only way I see Tom winning a ring is if Jonathan Taylor goes nuclear and goes back to being a top 3 running back, which could happen, or he could get traded and be a top 12 running back, which is just not enough to buoy Tom's young and meaty. He doesn't have top end talent outside of Taylor to win him a ring, in my opinion. So Thomas Griffin falls flat in the fraud tier.
Wow.
As for your team, I mean, consistent's the right word. It's similar to Tom's where I don't see top end talent to really, really get me excited, get me going. But I see how it happens this year for you, absolutely, and that's why you are in my frisky tier. I could see the Swamp Rats. I could see Boomin making some waves this year. I love Gibbs. I thought the Gibbs trade was good. I think he's going to be electric. He's going to come right out and be a stud running back. I don't see the high end talent elsewhere, but could
Uh,
make waves.
yeah. I
That's it for your frisky tier.
Yeah, I have 2 frauds and then the 2 expansion teams.
Okay. Well, then I will give the team that, spoiler alert, I guess is one of your frauds and is in my frisky tier, Jesse. I think it's disrespectful to put Jesse's team in the fraud tier. I get it. And if I was Jesse as a dynasty manager right now, I would be looking at this team real scared because it's thin. It's really dependent on 2 old running backs. And
3, if you count Connor.
see, I didn't because he just doesn't even excite me that much.
Yeah.
He's not good enough for me to count him. Real question marks for Jesse's team for the Raiders. But I mean, end of the day, a starting point of CMC and Saquon can win you a ring if they both pop off. He's got names who I think have potential to be relevant and consistent receiver, and I'm big on getting a difference making tight end, and that's Mark Andrews. So I see a world where Jesse absolutely wins a ring this year.
I'll give
He,
my
because
thoughts
of
then.
Mark Andrews, CMC, and Saquon, was closer to my contender tier than some of the other frisky teams.
I'll give my thoughts then. Yes, you are correct. He is in my fraud tier. I just don't know who on this team will do better than last year. I think the only person that I would even make a case for is Amari Cooper, because people are saying that with a full off season and whatnot, Deshaun could make the jump, and obviously that's going to come by way of feeding Cooper even more. Um, but he's always been inconsistent, even on teams that weren't bad offenses like last year. And so, I mean, he'll win you some games and he'll lose you some games. And I mean, it's just not someone that I am like, if he makes a jump this year a little bit, that I think is going to change anything. And like I'm saying, I don't think outside of that he's going to get better anywhere. And last year he was 9-8. Only because of the top heaviness of the league did he make the playoffs at all. And then CMC, James Conner, Saquon Barkley, all huge candidates to miss substantial time this year, as is Debo. There's some history of that as well. And it thins out so quickly that I just don't think that this team has a ton of guys that go high in redraft, but the combination of them, I think, is just a ticking time bomb. And I think that goes off at some point this year.
Definitely a real risky build.
So I guess we both have Rob as a fraud then as well.
It sounds like we both have Rob as a fraud. Sorry,
Sorry,
Mr.
Rob.
Catrabato. I don't think it's the year for Shelly Swift's invite list.
Yeah, I mean, I still like Ramondre. I'm not too worried about Zeke, but Kenneth Walker took quite the hit this offseason, if you ask me. Really capped the ceiling. And then having watched Anthony Richardson through college, I can tell you I obviously drafted him. I see the potential, but it is not something that's going to click right away. And for that reason, I don't like Pittman at all. And Evans also, I think I traded for Godwin. I think that they'll be okay. But I think if you're talking about the offense taking a massive dip in scoring, that hurts Evans a lot more than Godwin.
Yeah, I think Evans could do well with Baker. I see that being a pair that could like surprisingly kind of work. And Mike Evans is just so great. But I mean, again, I've been bringing up guys that I think are like difference making talents, guys that go and help you actually win a ring. And I don't know if Mike Evans is that in a 10-team league. Pittman, like you said, huge blow in my opinion, getting Richardson. I think it'll be fun. I'm excited to watch a lot of Colts football, but I don't think it's going to be good for Pittman at all. I bet Rob's sitting there wishing last year he traded Michael Pittman for Austin Eckler when I offered him that, but thank goodness he didn't. Um, Pittman could have been the fourth horseman.
What could have
But no,
been.
I mean, yeah, Swift took a massive hit. I like Waller, but he's not great. And yeah, the Zeke for Ramondre and Charbonnet for Kenneth Walker really, it was not an easy offseason for Rob's team. Just taking blows left and right.
I think Swift will be better this year. I do believe that he'll find some home on the Eagles and get some respect.
I don't know.
We'll see.
Eagles Swift has me real nervous.
Not it's no sure thing, but I really could see a world where it works. I also like Mooney and I like Ayuk a little bit. Yeah, I don't like Ayuk that much actually. But yeah,
I do like Ayuk a lot for what it's worth.
I don't know. It's just not
And
that
I
great for
love Gabe Davis.
yeah, fantasy god.
Yeah, not for fantasy so much, I guess. But all right, so it sounds like that. Is that everybody? We've
That's everybody
got all
for
our teams
me.
placed. So
Good
my
choice.
frauds were Rob and Tom. Yours were Rob and Jesse.
Yep.
Our contenders, I had myself and Brennan. You had myself, Brennan, and Feeds.
Zach Fedor.
All right, and then all of the other established teams were Friskies for us with the new guys. Not even really new guys up anymore. Well, this is year 4, year 3 after the
This is
expansion
gonna be
draft.
their fourth season, I believe.
4th season, and they are stepping into the window. Like I said, I think it's that would be my bold prediction if we were having like a bold prediction segment. My
Uh-huh.
bold prediction would be one of them really making waves, pushing for a playoff spot. I don't
This
think it
year?
happens. I don't think it happens for them, but I could see waves really starting to come
That's
and
what I
real
was saying.
fast. They're going to be winning rings, and we're going to be like shit.
Yeah. I
Nico's team and Pat's team, but they're both on their way to being scary soon.
quite enticing, and with the managership they've shown thus far, who
All
knows?
the credit to those two for building up really nice up and coming teams with not a lot of starting stuff.
We might
Well, with
transition
that,
here. We might transition here. I would just like to say this is their fourth season in the league, and my how fast did those 3 years go by, and how much has changed.
yeah, I'm with you. Obviously, that takes us to the proposal currently on the league table, waiting for the Charlotte delegation to come with any sort of proposals, amendments, really any word from them. It's been silent on the fronts.
Been
A lot
gifts
of memes, a lot of
and
gifts,
gifts.
but not a lot of action, not a lot of progress, and you hate to see
Charlotte
it.
delegation is a nice way of putting it. I like to call it Tom Top Jesse Bottom. Um, for the league fans out there. But here's what I will say about the transition to Superflex. I don't think anyone's going to say that I would not benefit from it. And I think we can point to a number of moves, draft and trade wise, that it is unfortunate that they were done. Um, But the fact of the matter is that there will never be a good time. I think Dan might have said that. I forget who, maybe Nico. And I just think that the by and large fairest way is a 3-year transition. I think 4 is so generous, but again, like people have been saying, if that's what it takes, then that's what we'll have to do because it is. I just don't like the league as dense as it is right now. We were talking about the frisky teams and how small the gaps were between teams for you, third through seventh, I believe. I like people
And I
having a
see Tom
chance.
and Rob basically about the same. I really, after myself and Brennan, and this includes Nico and Pat, you could rank the other 8 teams in whatever order you'd want, and I would have little problem with it.
And that's just not how Dynasty, if you ask me, is supposed to run. And I think people agree with that. So I really hope, even if it takes 4 years, that that's what we can do. Um, I will say the people that have been voicing their discontentment with the fact that this change would make them not be able to invest like they were planning on at certain other positions. Is that not the whole point? I mean, we're adding another quarterback so that you have to accumulate more value on your team to be good. I I don't see why we would switch to Superflex if people don't like the idea of spreading out the value on your team. It just doesn't make it much sense to me. So I uh I think the snake draft proposal where everyone gives up all their quarterbacks is insane. I think a lot of people are on that boat. Um, but I hope we can get this years thing across the goal line, however many it may have to be. But I would just like a conversation, and I feel like we've been gypped of that for a while now.
We could get another Zoom together. The first Zoom, I think, was productive. It was long and cumbersome, but I think it was productive. We definitely made progress there. Um, Yeah, obviously I fall on your side. I believe in the 3 4 year plan. I think that's a lot of time for people to pivot, for people to take advantage of changing values. If you don't like where your team is at right now and you think that the change to Superflex is really going to make it worse, you could try to win a ring for another 2 years and then have 2 years of blowing it up and just trying to get ready and get yourself back in shape. None, I don't know. 4 years just seems like a long time for me for things to fix themselves.
Yeah, it's really
But
quite manageable in 3.
I do get the hesitation because it is a sacrifice from the teams with worse QB rooms. They're inherently taking a hit, and the teams with better QB rooms are inherently getting a boost. Even if there's time to help negate that, we both believe it's enough time to help negate it enough to be reasonable and make it worth making the change. But it is a sacrifice from those teams that we're asking for.
Yeah, it's just such a slow sacrifice that I feel like I'm just not super sympathetic. But I guess
Yeah.
that's easy from my point of view. I don't know. All I
I
will
am
say,
a sorry, go ahead. Okay.
uh,
I
go ahead.
I lost my train of thought now.
I did
You're
too.
talking okay. I am of the belief that a switch to Superflex is more fun. I think it's just adding more relevant, valuable players to the market. And I think that's just like everybody's team gets a little bump, kind of, but everybody has more to manage, more to think about. It just makes things a little bit more dynamic in the league. Make trading wise, I think it opens a lot more doors. So I do think it's a positive change for the league to eventually find a way to Superflex. And I think if it doesn't happen now, we're gonna have a real tough time making it happen.
I
Which is why
agree.
I think making a decision on change now that will go into progress or go into effect over time is the best solution.
I will, while I have the ear of the people, I will give my stats that I put in the chat that I'm not sure who saw and who didn't. Josh Allen currently has, I believe it's 3 years in a row of being a top 3 quarterback. No one has done that in the last decade. There is one person that has done 2 in back-to-back years. Um, and that was, I don't, Dak maybe? I don't even remember. Um, the volatility of quarterbacks is something that I feel like is being really overlooked. Like I said, in the last decade, there was a 6 year stretch of no quarterback going back to back in the top three. Obviously, the top three isn't everything, but we're acting like Brennan having Mahomes and Hurts, or me having whoever. No one that's been top three, or maybe Watson was like 3 years ago. I just don't think that that's anything to be particularly afraid of. It's not going to be complete domination for a decade that we just get for free.
I mean, there's some QBs it is. If you went into the 2010s with Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady, then you were set. Even if in 2010 you said in 4 years we're going to switch to a super flex, you were set. So I think the volatility at QB, I don't know. The good guys stay really good for a long time. The mediocre guys stay mediocre for a long time. That's kind of just how QBs are. But I think 4 years is enough time for you to hit on a rookie, or maybe not hit on, but find a rookie you can invest in you like. If in 4 years you haven't done anything at the position, you worst case scenario can go give up a second round pick and get 36-year-old Dak Prescott from somebody. And boom, you've got QB production. It's just not a long-term answer. There's so much stuff that's going to happen in that time that I think there's so much room for anybody to make the necessary changes. But I guess Tom and Jesse aren't confident enough in their abilities to build a fantasy football team, which I do get. But like, it's like, why are you here then?
I was gonna say, I think they're afraid of the open waters. I talked on the Zoom about the open waters. That would be the most exciting part for me, not even being one of the teams that is quote unquote advantaged by this. Just the fact that any trade calculator and any rankings cannot tell you exactly what a player is worth. It's all about your own evaluation, your own analysis of the league, and I mean it's just unforeseen territory. And I, as a fantasy manager that likes to invest a lot of time, I'm super excited by that.
I think it'll be really interesting. I think it would be a lot of fun. Like you're saying, it would just put us in the Wild West a little bit. And I think that's really cool. But I do understand. And I ultimately think if we can't find something that everyone's agreeable to, the best answer is to stay how we are.
It'd be a damn shame.
It would be a shame. All right. Do you want to move on to our last little segment?
I think it's a perfect time for that.
All right. You can introduce it because I feel like you have a better idea of it than me.
I see this on TikTok for a lot of different things. We're gonna do it for dynasty value overall. So that said, we weren't able to put the expansion teams in the contender or frisky quite yet. But in terms of dynasty value overall, who knows? They might even be top two. I don't know. We'll talk about it. But we're going to have 5 slots. We're going to random number generate and say we pull Tom. We'll say, okay, well, where does Tom go 1 through 5, not knowing who our next 4 pulls are going to be. And we're just going to try and put them in the best order possible. And whatever comes will come. You want me to do the randomizing and stuff?
I have a generator right here and I have a list right next to it. So
Perfect.
I can get us cooking. All right. So the first team we're going to be placing is Jesse's team, Team Mir. Ryan's current fraud and a team with shaky, unstable, whatever you want to go with, long-term propositions. Ryan?
Well, obviously we're talking dynasty value. So I think contention ability is of value in a dynasty league. Obviously, that's ultimately the whole goal.
It's the most
Seeing
important
as I
thing.
don't believe he has any of that, and I don't think anyone could argue he has much going long term, I think this is a pretty safe 5 for me.
Yeah, I'm putting him 5 too. I'm scrolling through his bench and like there's people who will give value for this year as a contender, but like long-term pieces, not much. Looking at his starting lineup, long-term pieces, I mean, he's again got some receivers who will have some longevity. Mark Andrews should be around a while, but not nothing crazy, and he doesn't have his first next year. I'm definitely I'm following your lead. Jesse's going 5.
Kadarius Toney and Antonio Gibson being your only guys that you could really start on this team under the age of 27. I mean, we'll see. Yeah, I mean, I don't.
I mean, he said it himself. He's built for a closing window. He's trying to win now, or it'll be a tough couple years in rebuild town for Jesse.
Yeah, all right.
Now we have Pat, an interesting one of the expansion
Ooh,
teams, kind of dynamic. Curious to
okay.
hear your thoughts.
So I'm gonna pull it up because to be honest, I don't know. But as far as draft capital, just so everyone knows, he has his own first, Tom in his own second, and then the year after that, he has just his own first and second.
I mean,
Um,
pretty neutral in future draft capital, all things considered. Some extra seconds and thirds, but pretty
I
neutral.
think, I think, I think he made the right move. I will say with that Gibbs trade, I think I gave him more than enough value, and I think getting Gibbs at that time when he wouldn't have even had a serviceable RB2, let alone any depth at the position, it just would have been a waste. I think it would have rushed it too much. So I like his team now, much better going forward. Um, Still not super deep, and like we said, no insane quantity of draft capital. But like I was also saying, I think he's a really good manager. He's got Flowers, Bateman, maybe even KJ Osborne or Jacoby Myers could
Lot
do
of
really
young
well.
wide receiver talent.
Got Chig in there, Dalton Kincaid, and
I
that's
love Kendra Miller.
yeah. I mean, there's guys that are going to start rising, and he'll be able to sell them. Maybe it's a good sell. Maybe they end up being studs. Who knows? But huh? I think, I think I would put him 2 or 3, and I might be leaning 2.
I'm having the same debate in my head. Yeah, I agree with most of what you said, Pat. I'm penciling him in it too. I think this year Pat is 1 year away from being a legitimate contender. A lot of receivers, if Drake London steps forward, if the rookies Quentin Johnston, Zay Flowers make waves, he's instantly one of those teams. I think ETN's great. Like imagine a season, all of Pat's young receivers take steps forwards, and then he adds a running back. So he adds another capable like RB 10 to 16 range guy to go along with ETN. That is instantly a contender with Burrow and Hawkinson at his onesies. I'm in on Pat's team. I would be feeling good if I was Pat right now.
I like 2.
Yeah. Again, contender, he's right at the bottom, but long term, I think Pat and by extension Nico, just talking the two expansion teams, are both in good positions now to win for a long time. All right, our third team is Zach.
I
You
want
got
me.
the
Um,
interesting one of your contenders going up against Pat's team, and a contender with some solid young players.
that's what I was about to get into, man. I mean, Jalen Waddle. I'm not. I mean, I'm surrounded by Dolphins fans, and I tell them all the time, I don't know that Tua will end up working for him. But I mean, Lamar Jackson's now locked in there forever. Um, he's got Jalen Waddle. He's got James Cook, who I like. Um, he's not the deepest, especially in terms of youth on the bench, but I don't know. He's got Tank Dell. Damian Harris is all right, I guess.
No
Marquise Brown.
2024 first.
Interesting. I like Marquise Brown too, but I don't know. I think Adams, Waddle, and Metcalf will give him 2 more years. I think Lamar is going to be good for years to come. I think Kelsey's also in the 1 to 2 range.
Yeah,
No
look,
first. I think I that sounds more like a 3 to me, to be honest.
yep. I'm sitting between 3, 4 for Zach. He definitely belongs below Pat for me. I put him 3 personally. I do, looking at it now, have real questions about what this team's going to look like in 2 years, especially without a first. Travis Kelsey, Devontae Adams. I don't know how long Josh Jacobs will be around, but he was in your contender status. The biggest thing is winning rings, and he's a team that should be contending to win rings in the near future or for the near future. So
Yeah.
I gave him the nod at 3. All
He
right, our
didn't sell
next.
his soul, I don't think, and he what he is supposed to do, and that's eventually get to, at least for me, contender status. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good 3 for me.
All right, our next one's either going in the 1 spot or the 4 spot. I think we have a mirror rankings at the moment,
Yeah.
and I have a feeling they will stay mirrored. We're looking at Tom's team.
Yep. I was thinking in my head an ideal between Zach and Jesse placement. Um, I think Tom's team maybe, well, definitely has better long-term potential, but just is really lacking in value around those receivers. Obviously, building your receiver core up is the first thing that everyone says to do when you're especially in a 1 QB dynasty league. So I think he did a good job of that. But again, he's like Zach, um, where outside of that, 2 years from now, who knows what any of these guys will be like. And unlike Zach, he's just not contending really right now.
I think the Tom and Zach conversation is interesting. Tom has 2 firsts next year, definitely teams in very different spots. I think Tom is set up better as a future rebuilding team than Zach is as a current chips in contender. So I would personally put Tom higher. I can't because I'm not going to put him at 1 on these. Although honestly, looking at it, I don't hate putting him at 1 on these. I think somebody we like more could come up, but Tom's Chris Olave, Devontae Smith, Jonathan Taylor, Sam Laporta, guys who will be around for a while. 2 first-round picks. Jordan Addison. I love Jordan Addison.
I see it.
Um, I think Tom did a really good job of pivoting off what was a current monster contender team 18 months ago and made a couple moves that he had to make and has now set himself up really well for the long term. I'm still going to put him 4, I think, but you don't know. I'm going to put Tom 1. I
4. I don't
It's
like
just a
4.
matter of, do I end up liking Tom's team more than the next one pulled? And I think it's very possible I like Tom's team more than the next one pulled.
I
So
I don't think he's done a bad job per se. I think a lot of his guys that seemed like blue chips ended up tanking. Michael Thomas.
CEH,
Yeah, I mean,
Jonathan Taylor's not what it was. He had
what
to move
should have
off of
been,
Dalvin. He moved off of Kelsey.
but I think him and Zach are very parallel. And like I was saying, the 1 to 2 years from now, he'll have no quarterbacks. I think Miles Sanders will be worse for it. Madison will, I mean, unless the Vikings change their mind on how they feel about long-term signing running backs, that's when his contract's done. Akers is also in that same conversation. I think the Rams are going to hit the cliff real soon, so I don't see him being any long-term, you know, guy there. I just, I don't know. I at least like that Zach's contending, and I don't hate exactly where he's going long term. So I'm going Tom Ford.
I was hyping up Pat's wide receivers big time. I was saying, what if Pat's young receivers take a step forward? Then all of a sudden he's an instant contender. What if Olave, Devontae Smith, and Jordan Addison, all in the next 2 years, come even close to what you're assuming their ceilings would be? That's 3 legit weapons at receiver. Jonathan Taylor should stay a really good guy, and he has more draft capital than Pat does. So I really see a path with Tom that's not hard to reach at all. I'm putting him at 1. We'll see what the next team brings us. I'm feeling good. The next team was Rob.
Okay.
Where are we putting Rob in our rankings? We got 2 spots left. I guess there's not much discussion there. So Rob's gonna be
Lots
in my
left.
number 4 team, and your number 1 team is
Yeah.
Shelly and the Swifts, or Shelly
I
Swift's invite list.
yeah, I guess it has to be, man. He's a fraud and he's not looking too good for the future, but I don't know.
No,
Yeah, I guess I do
Pittman will
now.
turn it around eventually. Receiver careers are long.
It
but
will.
like
Pittman. Yeah. I mean,
Pittman. I
it's
still think
good.
Kenneth Walker's really talented. Ramondre's young. Diggs, Mike Evans, Darren Waller, Tyler Lockett. I mean, this is his starting lineup. Not guys that inspire you hope for the next 3 years.
Uh-uh.
I'm with you. He has all of his draft capital. He hasn't moved any future picks. That's good. But yeah, I feel better with him at my 4 spot than I would at my 1 spot.
I think if I could do it all again, my order would go Pat, Zach, Tom, Jesse, and Rob. I think
Yeah, go ahead.
Jesse and Rob are equally kind of shafted going forward. Will take a lot of work to build, but Jesse's a little better now. I mean, I don't even know that he's better. I just think that shit needs to click for sure, but at least there's like a window to a championship, which I don't know that Rob has. Um, and then Pat, I think, is in the best place going forward. And Pat, Zach, and Tom. I mean, I already justified why I had Zach over Tom. So
Yeah, Pat, Tom, Zach. I would say Rob, Jesse. I'm putting Rob over Jesse. Few more future draft capital. If things don't work out this year, both guys who want to win a ring this year, presumably. If things don't work out this year, I see a lot more room for Rob to kind of pivot and start building for the future than I do for Jesse.
I suppose all of Jesse's guys are not guys that people will be buying at the end of this season.
Probably not. I mean, Mandrews.
Yeah, I like him going forward, but
All right.
we
Well, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
I was just gonna say I wouldn't be touching Saquon with a 1,000-foot pole after
No,
this year.
no. Well, any closing thoughts? It's been fun. I'm glad to address the league once again. Like I
Yeah,
said, very excited for this year. I think we're all on the same page on that one. It's gonna be a fun season.
I hope that we can get this done. Like I was saying, I hope we can get Superflex and tight end premium across the line, but priority on the first one.
Yeah, let's get flexy.
Super excited for the year. Thank you everyone that listened, and watch out for the swamp rats, and also watch out for some hype videos because that has not found its end yet. That will keep coming.
How many people you think are getting to this point in the video? How many people do you think are hearing this of our
I
8 potential listeners?
I think 4.
I was gonna say 3 to 5, somewhere in that range.
Yeah,
If we get 4, I'm happy, and get 2 others to listen to like most of it or skip through. I'm happy.
I bet the expansion teams are here right now. I
I'd
trust
be
that
willing to bet the
they're
expansion teams are
devoted.
here right now. Well, this was
They're
for them. Tom and Jesse left 5 minutes in, and Nico's been like, yeah, super flex. My team's awesome. So this was definitely a one tailored to the expansion teams.
Yeah.
All right.
It was a
Love
pleasure,
you, love
man.
the league, love all you guys, and I'm excited.
All right. We'll cut it. Peace out.